Have you ever really thought about what it takes to be comfortable inside? It seems so simple. You just walk over to the thermostat and set it. But behind that simple little dial, there's this hidden world of incredible science. It's a complex equation that engineers have to solve perfectly just so you can feel, well, nothing. So let's pull back the curtain on the unseen science that makes our worlds comfortable. We have all been there, right? You're freezing at your desk, you've got a sweater on in July. But then you walk into a meeting just down the hall and bam, it's like a sauna. Your first thought is probably, ugh, the AC is broken again. But what if I told you it's probably not broken at all? Here's the thing. Making an entire building feel comfortable, everywhere, all at once, it's actually one of the toughest engineering challenges out there. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act, a huge math problem with dozens and dozens of variables. And to solve it, engineers use a very specific process. It's called load estimating. That's the technical term for figuring out exactly how much cooling a space really needs. And this is not a guessing game. It's a super precise calculation of every single source of heat, which all adds up to what they call the heat load. But this is where things get really, really interesting. See, to really get this, you have to understand two different ideas. First, there's the instantaneous heat gain. Think of that as all the raw heat just pouring into a room at any given moment. But then there's the actual cooling load, which is what the air conditioner actually has to fight. And here's the twist. Those two numbers are almost never the same. So where does all that extra heat go? Well, that difference, that's the building's biggest secret. We're going to come back to that. First, we have to figure out where all this heat is even coming from. Okay, so to solve this comfort equation, an engineer's first job is to basically become a detective. They conduct what's known as a building survey, which is pretty much a forensic investigation to find every single potential source of heat. And I'm not kidding about how important this is. The design manual we're pulling this from says it right here, and I'm quoting, "The completeness and accuracy of this survey is the very foundation of the estimate, and its importance cannot be overemphasized." In other words, if you mess this part up, the whole thing falls apart. I mean, just look at this checklist. It's wild. The detective has to figure out which way the building faces to calculate how much sun it's getting. They document every single material, the walls, the roof, the windows, everything. Then they move inside. What's the space used for? How many people are in there? And what are they doing? Are they sitting calmly or running around? How many lights? What kind of computers, coffee makers, or heavy machinery are running? Every one of these things is a clue, a variable in our big equation. So once the survey is done, our detectives start sorting through all the clues. And the first big category of suspects, all the heat that finds its way in from the great outdoors. There are three main culprits here. First, you've got the sun itself, just beating down on the roof and streaming through the windows. That's a big one. Second, you have the simple difference in air temperature, causing heat to literally creep through the walls. And third, you've got infiltration. All that hot, sticky air that sneaks in through every tiny crack and gap it can find. Those are your external heat loads. But the investigation isn't over yet, not by a long shot. After figuring out all the heat coming from the outside, the detective now has to look for the heat that's being generated inside the room. These are the internal loads. And the internal load, well, it really depends on the character of the space. Just think about it, right? A quiet library with just a few people reading has a completely different heat signature than a busy office, or a kitchen full of roaring ovens, or a data center just humming with servers. The internal culprits are things we see every day. For starters, people. Yeah, us. Your body is like a little 100-watt furnace, constantly giving off heat. Then you have lights. An old-school light bulb is basically a tiny space heater that also happens to glow. And finally, every single thing you plug in, from your tiny laptop to a giant industrial motor, is pumping heat out into the room. Okay, so our heat detective has gathered all the external clues, all the internal clues. Now it's time for the moment of truth. It's time to do the math and see why getting this all right is so absolutely critical. Okay, check this out. This is a real load estimate form. Now, you don't need to read all the tiny print. Just look at it. Appreciate the sheer complexity. Every single clue from that long survey, every window, every person, every light bulb, gets plugged into a form just like this one to calculate the final number. It is unbelievably detailed. Because here's the bottom line. Getting that math wrong, even by a little bit, has huge consequences. If you overestimate how much cooling you need, you'll install a giant AC unit that wastes a ton of energy. And if you underestimate it, the space will just never, ever be comfortable. People will be miserable. But When you get the math just right, that's when you get that perfect productive environment that runs as efficiently as possible. But hold on, we still haven't solved our original mystery. What's the deal with that gap between all the heat pouring in and the load the AC actually has to deal with? It is time to reveal the final clue. The answer lies in looking at the building in a totally new way. It's not just a passive box holding all the heat, it's an active player in the game. And this is the secret: heat storage. All the solid stuff in a building, the concrete floors, the drywall, even the desks and furniture, it all acts like a giant thermal sponge. As heat from the sun or from the lights hits these surfaces, they literally soak it up and hold on to it. Then they release it back out really, really slowly over time. And that is the solution to our mystery. The building sponge soaks up that intense blast of heat that comes in during the middle of the day. This means the AC system doesn't have to fight that massive peak all at once. The building itself smooths everything out, which is why the actual cooling load is often so much lower than the peak instantaneous heat gain. The building is helping out. So the next time you walk into a building and it just feels perfect, remember what's happening just out of sight. It's not an accident. It's definitely not magic. It's the result of a detective's hunt for clues, a whole lot of complex calculations, and a deep understanding that the building itself is a silent partner in keeping you comfortable. It's just good math.